When on the topic of the best Studio Ghibli film, there's a lot to dig into, because the whole catalog of films produced by Studio Ghibli is quite frankly of the league of their own. It's astonishing to see how such a prolific anime film studio establishes itself as one of the most influential pieces to push off the whole anime trend in the world. Even asking non-anime fans in general if they have seen any of the Studio Ghibli films or at least recognize some of it, there's a likely chance that at least one of them will say they have. Picking either Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, or Howl's Moving Castle, the safest and most popular choices to pick from, and with a slight chance that they might even say My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, or if they're depressed enough, Grave of the Fireflies, which, to put it simply, are all the essential Studio Ghibli films to watch. Which is definitely not the case because there's a lot of amazing choices to pick from the whole catalog of Studio Ghibli films outside the popular ones and the undisputed classics that every anime fan should watch and experience at least once in their life. And some disappointing entries as well. But if I were to follow my heart on what's my favorite Studio Ghibli film, out of all the critically acclaimed ones and the most influential ones they have, I would go with one of the most underappreciated Ghibli films which I believe deserves a much needed attention of how good of an animated film it is. And that is When Marnie Was There. One of the most beautiful anime films that was released on the last decade, possessing one of the most emotional storytelling that I ever experienced from a Studio Ghibli film, and quite frankly, one of the best Studio Ghibli films that nobody is talking about. When Marnie Was There was released on July 19, 2014 in Japan, becoming the last animated film that Studio Ghibli produced before going on a long hiatus. Directed by Hiromasa Unibayashi, one of the few films he has ever directed under Studio Ghibli other than Arrietty before leaving the studio. It is based off a novel with the same name by Joan Robinson in 1967, which has been subsequently adapted into various forms before landing on Studio Ghibli's good hands to be adapted as a proper animated film. The story follows a girl named Anna, a lonesome, introverted young girl who one day at their school suffered from an asthma attack. After getting checked by a doctor, she was then suggested to leave the bustling city of Sapporo to move to a rural and healthier place to regain her health back. With that in mind, Anna's foster mother, Yuriko, though seen as having a rather shaky relationship with Anna, decided to let her stay in the relative's house throughout the summer season in the rural seaside town of Kisakibetsu, a picturesque town with lush greenery and a great view of the sea, a perfect location for Anna's rehabilitation. Without any restraints, Anna agrees and travels to the rural town. Being picked up by her foster mother's relatives, Setsu and Kiyomasa Oiwa, Anna then settled in their cozy house throughout the duration of the summer season. Surprised by the change in scenery, Anna goes for a walk throughout the small town and stumbles upon a mysterious mansion across a salt marsh. Amazed by what she saw, Anna then proceeds to walk towards the mansion to investigate and soon find out that the mansion was already abandoned. When the night came, Anna dreams of the abandoned mansion somewhat mysteriously calling for her to come. After getting closer, she saw the mansion was once again occupied by seeing the lights turned on in one of the rooms of the mansion and a beautiful blonde girl. Anna then wakes up from that dream with many questions in her mind. Soon, the start of Anna's mysterious but emotional experience began, relating to the mansion across the marsh and a mysterious blonde girl. When Marnie Was There is a film that is rather noticeably different, I would say, than with the other Ghibli films. Part of it is due to the fact that its source material isn't a Ghibli original. But when I say it's noticeably different, it doesn't pertain to it being a bad Studio Ghibli film, but rather a very good one in fact. Hiromasa Unibayashi's directing skills shines beautifully in this film, By carefully grasping the concept of the source material and making sure to retain its originality by also not alienating longtime fans of Studio Ghibli films. It's different in a sense that it doesn't immediately hook the viewers to the story or the world itself, but rather it takes a backseat, and this time it focuses on immersing us with the characters, which in this case is Anna, and what she is feeling deep within, which follows perfectly with the film's premise, which is all about understanding the character's emotions. It's unlike House Moving Castle, which in the opening scenes immediately shows the sophisticated steampunk world of House Moving Castle. These amazing set pieces hook the viewers to have an understanding of the world first before meeting up the characters. It's a very good opening scene from a storytelling perspective because it lays the groundwork for our understanding of the world and what to expect to the story later on. But with this film, it rather takes its time. It's pretty much down to earth, which focuses on the characters with the feelings they are going through and also relating to the environment they are in. Its mysterious and melancholic vibe made for a chilling but cozy animated film. It's not overbearing with its story or the world, but rather it's one of the most simplest Ghibli films to date. It's unlike other well-known Ghibli films, one that would not make you feel surprised, but at the same time, it's not underwhelming. The balance between the story and the visuals makes up for the rather simplest Ghibli film while still solidifying its identity as a top-notch Studio Ghibli film. One might mistake this film as a children's movie, but in fact, it's rather very mature. It tackles psychological conflicts, social anxiety, issues with family and suicide, one that certainly is not what you would expect from a children's movie. But it made up for a film that isn't as dark as it needs to be, but also not as childish as it wants to be. It caters to a wide range of audience, but most importantly to those who could extremely relate to the characters. It's one of the most human-feeling Ghibli films in my experience, and it's a breath of fresh air to see such animated films still being made today. The characters may not be as exceptional, but it compensates well enough for the viewers to relate to in a varying degree. The film's visual is also not to be taken lightly. Right at the bat, its art style stemmed proudly from traditional Ghibli art, which made for a nostalgic feeling towards previous Ghibli films. But most importantly, it's a film that will certainly move your heart, one that would leave you with a sign of relief but at the same time sadness. You want the characters to feel happiness, you yearn for them to feel happiness, but the stench of melancholic vibe still resonates. If I were to give it a title, it truly is one of the saddest Ghibli films, and the only one in fact to make me cry at the very end. It's definitely one of the most inoffensive Ghibli films I could recommend, and one that I wouldn't be shy to admit that it's my favorite Ghibli film. It's a masterpiece in its own right, and it's definitely deserving to be in the top 10 Ghibli films with just the story itself. It may have been overshadowed by time, as a lot of Ghibli films do, when the current trend of anime films today caters more to the modernizing visuals of Makoto Shinkai's films with making everything look aesthetic and beautiful. But Studio Ghibli's simplistic but aesthetic nature is the reason why these films and a lot of their catalog these days still shines more. The story and the visuals are amazing, its emotional highs are exceptional, and as an animated film in itself, it's one of the best films to have been ever made. It truly deserves more attention and praise because these styles of films and storytelling will more likely be lost or overshadowed with a lot of modern anime films. And out of all, watching this movie made me regain that thought process that anime is truly a form of art. It doesn't excel nor underwhelm, but to determine a masterpiece, it certainly must have a clear influence in yourself, your outlook, your emotions, your overall understanding. A masterpiece must in some point has an effect in you. It doesn't matter what anime it is or is it an isekai, but if you felt strongly by watching it and you yourself know that it's a masterpiece, then you have truly found your masterpiece. And with Marnie Was There, this is a film that just gave me that feeling, that satisfaction, that rush of emotions made me realize that this film is truly a masterpiece. So if you ever have enough spare time in your day and looking for a film that would just make up for your 2 hours of free time, then this movie deserves your time more than any shows you have in mind.